the challenge with companies that overuse Slack for communication, especially around work, creates like huge problems around mental health for employees. People feel like they have to be online all the time. You have loads of unread messages and DMs. And so we were like, hang on, what if we could just make Slack 10x better for those that want to work asynchronously?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Good for Profit. Today's guest with us is Adit Trivedi. Adit is co-founder and CEO at Rayday, and Rayday is an app that allows you to share work and manage feedback requests all in one place. It's all about streamlining how to communicate and work around projects internally within a team. In today's conversation, we talked about a lot of really interesting things, such as neurodiversity and what it takes to build a great team, and also spoke about the importance of diversity in the workplace, amongst other things. So without further ado, the conversation was fantastic. Let's get right into it. Adit, welcome back, my friend. I mean, I say welcome back. So just for a little bit of context, we recorded this episode back in May, and then given that Adit is a great entrepreneur, and I'm using the word entrepreneur here just to know you. Genuinely, given that in the startup world things move so fast, and when you speak with founders in the earlier stages, like things change so much, and so we actually decided to re-record it because you guys have been learning so much from the market. You've been iterating, developing, getting users on board, and learning from them, and making changes, right? Can you maybe start by walking us through like just since we spoke last time, so the last 4 months, how's that looked for you guys, and what are you doing now?
Mad. I'd say it's like learning upon learning and not like setting in on a solution that doesn't solve the problem extremely well. So like the mission is always held true. Like how do you in this world enable people to work best, how they best work? And all centered around really like employee engagement. But after doing some digging, realized like we had to properly find where the pain points were. And what we found with remote teams is that the bigger you grow, the more chaotic distributed work becomes. Because typically, well, I mean, I say typically, in an ideal world, the way that distributed and remote teams work best is when they don't take time zone or time difference into account. And that suits asynchronous communication incredibly well. And so we started off thinking about async comms, but like using the word asynchronous, like no one knows really what it is or what it means unless you're remote. And so like I'd say like in order to build like something that really does solve asynchronous communication at scale, we went on a big learning journey to understand what those components are. And so that's what we've been doing, and we've been testing with different solutions, and we ended up realizing like we created our first solution, which was on Bubble and doing like asynchronous reviews and feedback, and then we started moving into what was the next one? Yeah, we built a Chrome app which allows you to like request feedback based on where the information is.
As in like a widget type thing?
Yeah, like a Chrome extension. And we had users, and they were just like, you've got to meet us where we are. And that was Slack. And for a while, I was like, no, we're just building a Slack app. And actually, when we started,
You weren't too happy with how Slack worked, right?
I think like Slack is, and I'm still not right, like Slack is an instant messenger. And I think like the challenge with companies that overuse Slack for communication, especially around work, creates like huge problems around mental health for employees. People feel like they have to be online all the time. You have loads of unread messages and DMs. And so we were like, hang on, what if we could just make Slack 10x better for those that want to work asynchronously? And that resonated. And so we have companies using us now from seed and Series A all the way to Series B, Series C. And the question for us, which I'm battling, is, so there's two areas, right? You have remote all teams or remote first teams that want to imprint asynchronous communication as a foundation, because for remote teams, asynchronous communication is scalable, and enables you to create sustainable businesses because you're not taking time zone into account from day one. Um, and the other side is, fuck, my Slack is way too chaotic. Please help me. And like we spoke to teams, so we spoke to a company yesterday who have 700 people, and they showed us their Slack, and fucking hell, it's bonkers. Loads of unread channels. They were saying how like,
I can imagine because I mean already even for us at Q Finds it's crazy. It's so we have what 10 people, and I can already see there's a lot of channels that seem unnecessary. There's just I don't know. There's it just feels a little bit messy already, and that's with only with only 10 people. So I can
agreed.
imagine what it would be like when you're huge. And by the way, really well done on getting those users in, man. Congratulations on getting those big startups in. That's
No,
really awesome.
thanks, man. I think, look, we're still like super early, so it's again still early
Hmm.
doors. But I think the vision is now grand enough with like we can clearly see like, oh, well, I mean, in our minds we can see like what the product could potentially look like with the product vision, and it's now like taking those minuscule steps to get there by understanding and working through
Mm,
like what's the biggest problem now. And one is in Slack, how do you actually automate the process of requests? So people request things typically
right.
by email
Yes.
or via Slack, but typically on Slack, can you get this done for me? Can you review this PR? um, I'm thinking about doing this in a couple of weeks, so I'm thinking about where the company should be. Can you give your thoughts and feedback? And what happens is, if you get the loudest person in the room, or the loudest people in the room hogging a thread, which means that the other people don't contribute, or you ask for
Hmm.
something and it just is a long process to try and get people to do the thing, and it creates loads of distractions. And with asynchronous,
Mm,
the whole point is you've got to assume that everyone is offline. And so you provide as much context as possible at the beginning, and you ask for
yep.
things in like micro doses, in its like smallest,
Right.
like one atomic unit part. Um, and so
Okay.
yeah,
That's very interesting.
we've taken that first route.
How do you, I mean, if you can't dive into this yet, it's okay, obviously, but how do you guys work around the notification? Because, like, you still need to have you still are going to get notified that somebody's requesting something, right?
So we actually want to do things slightly differently, because most things that people send for people to do aren't actually urgent. And if you
Hmm.
assume that people are offline at a given time and you've planned correctly, then like a couple of days even is totally fine. I think for the
Hmm.
instant things that need to get done, there's this bug that is on fire that means the app isn't working. Yeah, let's sort this out. But like if something's an emergency, typically you just get on the phone or text someone. Um,
Yeah.
but most things aren't urgent. And so how can you like minimize distractions? So now back to your question on notifications, we want to actually take the opposite route and give users the power of like enabling when they get notified where. So like we're
Okay.
thinking about how users can say bulk up my requests, all towards the end of the day, and then notify me and then show me those requests based on like urgency levels or priority levels. You may choose to get notified for things at lunchtime and at your evening time. You may
Okay.
choose to want to
Yeah.
get notified all of the morning, but don't bother me afternoon to evening because I'm in deep work and flow. And so, how do you genuinely put the power back into people's hands, and give them the opportunity to like own their working schedule?
That's very, very cool. Wow. Yeah, because you're so right about things not being urgent all the time. I think we tend to make things seem more urgent than they are, and I think part
100%.
of it comes down to the. I mean, we do need to move fast in startups, and so part of it comes down
Mhm.
to that necessity to be moving fast. And I think if not done carefully, what that can do, and I am 100% at fault here as well with this, is just things feel more urgent than they perhaps are, and you
You're,
kind of pass that on to the rest of the team, right? You end up like,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you find it funny, right? Like it's often the
Mm,
counterintuitive things that like actually work, and so like with us working
Mm.
asynchronously and we're distributed, we just hired another engineer, and they're based in Mongolia. Um, that's an 8 hour time difference. But having worked asynchronously now for a while, um, we've found at least that it actually boosts output, and speed of learnings, because people are able to go into deep work a lot faster without interruptions. Like even our Slacks, bro, we're always offline.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually quite funny if you look at how Slack is used by Slack. You will quickly see that, like basically, I think the founders of Slack wanted a similarish thing. I think originally, like they did not. I don't know if it was around asynchronous necessarily, but from what I read, what I remember, is that they actually wanted to enable people to just have a better messaging experience compared with email. Things can be more organized. You can get notifications when sort of you can be offline when you're not working and so on. And so if you look at how Slack is used internally, it seems that there is a bit of a specific methodology that Slack would use when they're using their own messaging app. But that hasn't seemed to have translated over to everybody else. I mean, I don't know why that is. It could be a bunch of different things. I think we have a slight lag, by the way. But yeah, so if I cut you
Yeah,
off by accident, sorry about
no, good or good.
that.
I think like a lot of the things to do with Slack, you try and replicate what you know, which is like being in the office, right? And being in the office, you can like nudge someone if you need them. But like, I wonder how many people that went to the office and actually got productive work done from like 9 to 12, took, or 9 to 1, took a lunch break, and then was productive 2 to 5, and then had to travel for all the hours they did, only to like not, not actually be productive in the office and actually get their shit done at home. And I think
Oh,
like,
I can speak from my own experience. I mean, for me personally, if I go to the office, I take into account that there's going to be like 2 hours of just stuff, not doing much in between somewhere, because you're talking to people. You're like, there's somebody sat there that mentioned something, and you get cut off, and you talk to them or whatever. And I actually think about that in advance. I kind of take that into account. In a way, I kind of, because I'm quite an outgoing person, so I quite like talking to people just randomly about random stuff, whether it's work related or not. And so I don't mind the interruption too much, but only when it's planned for, in a way.
yeah,
But I will have to go and just either put my headphones in or sit in another room somewhere and actually get my head down and work to make sure that I'm like being really productive when I'm in the office. So
yeah, great. I
yeah,
mean, look,
totally, totally agree with you.
I'm bigging up asynchronous a lot, but like I'm super extrovert, bro. But for us as a
Mm,
team, I think like we found like we've built huge trust by when we call each other, we actually use it to build personal relationships. I think like the things to do with work can happen asynchronously. But again, if things are going back and forth, it's easier to just jump on a call. So book in a call. But there it has a clear agenda and a clear outcome. And I think it's like
mm,
you end up saving bare time. And if actually say you're productive from like, I don't know, with me, I'm good from like 8 or 12. Then I'll hit the gym. Then I'm a bit slumpy, and then by 4 o'clock I'll pick it up. So I typically won't even work from 12 to 4. Then I'll crack on from like 4 to 7. I'll get more done in the four
that's
to
brilliant.
seven than a lot of people get done from like 10 to 4. So I think it's
That's
like
brilliant.
understanding what works well for you. I know some devs that like get busy all night long, and then morning up until
Hmm.
early afternoon they just slump. And like if they're doing better work and more work of
It
higher
doesn't
quality
matter.
at that points, then like who am I to say, nah, you need to change all that to work like 9 to 5? But I think those days are gone, and I think the more companies going remote, the more challenges they're starting to now find, being productive on a in office sync schedule.
Mm. It's actually a really good point. I mean, it's long been known kind of thing that, or maybe just not talked about enough, but it has been known in the back of our heads that not everyone works the same way. Some people prefer to
Yeah,
sleep in the morning and then get up late and start working later. Some people prefer to work a bit more during the night. Some people prefer to work in the afternoon, in the evening. And it even sometimes just works better around people's schedules with others. I mean, where this whole 9 to 5 thing came from and why we've just kept it and not questioned it for so long is probably just the fear of change or what might happen, or maybe just like, if it's not broken, don't fix it, kind of thing. But maybe it is
I
broken and
think it
maybe it
was
does need
broken.
fixing.
I think it was broken because
Yeah.
otherwise, like COVID happened, and like most people would have just returned to that setting or wouldn't have rebelled. Like you, most people have heard of like the Great Resignation, and now it's like quiet quitting, bro.
Hmm.
Like quiet quitting's been a thing for
Yeah.
like decades. It's not nothing
Yeah, yeah,
new.
it's not a new thing. No, no, it's not a new thing at all. It's a new term going around, but it's not a. And for everyone's knowledge, like, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but quiet quitting essentially is just when you effectively just start doing the bare minimum at work,
I
just to
think it's
like kind
more
of for the
just you.
days to go by. But that's pretty much, yeah,
You've quit. Like I remember, I had an internship at JP Morgan, bro. I quit from like
yeah,
day one, day two mentally. I was like, this is bullshit work, bro. So like again,
right,
I would do the bare minimum, but in my mind, I was like, I really don't care about this. And I think that's a
mm,
dangerous position to have anyone in your company in, where they're like,
yeah,
I don't
definitely,
think this can work, or like, I'm done. I think especially in startups, like we've had to restructure the team back in March. I let some people go, uh, and we're more productive as a three than we were as a 5, 6. And I think
yep,
it's testament to like the trust we've built within each other. Um, but also just allowing us to work on like our own schedules, and knowing
mm,
that like we trust each other to get the work done. Everyone has a growth mindset here, and so quiet quitting, especially for startups with any first hires, can I think very much kill you as a business.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, money is the hardest thing, is actually surviving and getting by and having enough cash in the bank to pay people and having a long enough runway and so on.
Yeah,
And
facts.
if you have the wrong people in the business and they're there for months, that's a
Agreed.
huge problem. That's a huge, huge
Agreed.
problem.
We had to restructure a few things, and like now we've got run rate, even with this new engineering hire, till March 2024. And I think we'll be in a good, strong position. I think we'll be in a strong position to raise by like February next year. But for me, it's less about timescale. It's more about like, do we understand the core building blocks that like really enable asynchronous communication at scale? That is validated to some extent, and then you can easily go and raise like a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 million seed round, saying, we validated this. We've got early users who love this here. This is our ICP. This is how it grows within an account. These are the people we target. This is the specific problem we're solving, and this is the big vision we're now looking to capture. It then becomes a no-brainer. Um, but I think most people go out and fundraise, not really knowing actually why they want or need the money in the first place, other than we need to survive. And I think that is the most unsexiest offering that could be put on the table.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. Well, yeah. I mean, because you've got some things on your belt already, right? Some experiments, let's call them,
Well, I mean, I
from the
co-founded
past.
Yumi. That went up to near Series B. That's still doing really well today. Um, but I think that was more my battleground for now what we're doing here, which I'm very grateful for. Otherwise, I'd be running around as like a headless chicken. I mean, you're still running around like a headless chicken. I think like any business you do, it it's just as difficult. You just make less of the more obvious fuck ups.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Absolutely. Tell me about it, man. Yeah, it's definitely, it definitely sounds a lot sexier in the box, on the tin, like to actually start a business and go and try and solve a problem out there. And there's so many mistakes that can be made along the way. I remember
100%.
speaking to an investor who was satisfied with having a 60 to 70% win rate when it comes to decisions. So like basically, like what he'd look for in founders is, if he knows someone and he knows that they get roughly every 6 to 7 out of 10 decisions right, then he'll invest in them, because it's just about 50%. So it means that you overall you're winning essentially. So like it's not even, they're not they're not looking for like anyone to get all decisions right, because that's freaking impossible. But if you can get 6 out of 10 right, then that's good enough.
Bro,
In
I'll
fact,
be
that's
real
pretty
with
good.
you. 6 out of 10 is
Yeah.
I don't know anyone, even like friends who are successful founders right now that are like
Yeah,
Series B, C, or like close to IPO. Uh, they don't get 6 out of 10 right, bro. I think 6 out of 10 right is like a. If you're nailing that, you're probably getting it in every tier one VC like lining up your door, because it's a probability game.
yeah,
I think like
fair.
as long as most founders probably get, and not even founders, most teams probably get like at the beginning like 1 in 100 right, and then that starts to decrease and decrease and decrease right, and then it turns to like
And get better and better over
one,
time.
2 in 10,
Yeah.
3 in 10. But like if you can validate and invalidate things cheaply, actually what really
Mm.
matters is learning. So like we ain't done a lot of things right, bro, at Rayday even. Like, and it's been a year. Because if we had, we'd have found product market fit by now and we'd be scaling like no tomorrow. Um so I
Yeah, but
think
it's a
it's
lot
more
harder than
so
than it sounds.
I think more so it's less about getting decisions right. It's more about how fast are you learning from potential users, to understand whether you've nailed what the problem is, and then how many iterations can you go through and learnings with the team to ensure that you get the solution right. And so I
Mm.
think it's more about that pace of learning than it is about getting anything right, because like 8 out of 10 things you'll be wrong about, maybe even 9, probably even 9. But yeah, so that's why I probably
Yeah,
disagree, but hey, who am I?
interesting. Yeah, no, no, no. It's it's a fair point. I mean, you have built a business in the past as well, and you've taken it quite far. So definitely, um, you've got more than enough. What's the word? More than enough reason to
Experience.
comment on this and have something to say about it. Yeah, exactly. You've got experience.
Yeah, I just think it sets like
Um,
unexpected expectations, isn't it? Like if it's like,
it's a fair point. Yeah,
um, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I think when we were talking, I think it was meant more as a like in a general sense, just getting decisions right. Like hiring the correct people and like in an overall kind of sense, rather than just about maybe building the right thing.
so
Or
that I see what you
yeah,
mean.
it was more of like
Um,
a general like it's about winning. It's about it being more than half of the decisions being right, so that just overall, like not just when it comes to product or building the business.
yeah, I think over
But yeah,
time, like your decisions, like the more
you
things you get
improve.
right, the more closer you probably are to PMF. At least I heard from a podcast, but
Yeah,
I think at the early stages, you like be prepared to be wrong like 99% of the time. And I think that's
yeah,
why
yeah,
founders
absolutely,
don't get past the
and
start.
validate it.
Yeah, I think that's why like starters don't
Yeah,
starters founders don't get past the starting line because they're so fixated on their idea with like no validation and no like. And what I mean is like real validation, not some fucking McKinsey Gartner report which says da 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 da. Because
no, it
like even
doesn't. It
those
doesn't.
people with like even those people like these consultants that have written the paper, they've never built a business. How the fuck are they to know? Like yes, the macro
Yeah,
trend might be going this way. No one can predict the future, but like you
it's
can
always
go
the
out and
funniest thing
figure
in
out
the
people's
world when you
problems.
have someone say to you something like, um, "Oh, I studied this at university and I've got a master's in this, therefore I know my shit."
Ha! It's like
Or
you can
like
teach
someone turning around and being
entrepreneurship.
like, "Yeah, you can't." It's like someone turning around and saying, "Oh, I have an MSc in marketing. Thank you very much. Like, don't tell me how
Ha!
to do marketing or don't tell me something about it." I'm like, excuse me,
Yeah.
mate. I'm so sorry. Apologies. Didn't realize you're a fucking expert in this. Oh god, this shit can't be taught at uni, man. Like, I think,
I agree.
yeah, this shit just can't be taught at uni.
I think
It's
you've
you have to get
got
out into in the field and actually do it firsthand.
you got to get thrown in the trenches, man. Like I don't know
Yep,
if it was
and
up to
make a ton
school,
of mistakes.
bruv. Like I didn't get into any
Yeah.
entrepreneurship classes in like uni, and I felt all these uni groups were like so like culty and like to themselves. I look back and not in an arrogant way, but I look back and be like,
Mm.
where the fuck are all of you lot now, bruv? You all got normal jobs. Like you always put on a front. You never really went out and actually tried to get it. And like, fair enough. Like if you've tried to get it and it didn't work, like, and you gave it your all and you tried like every angle you
Yeah.
possibly could to make it work. Um, but I don't know, man. There's too many. I think there's just too many talkers these days. And one term I actually learned from Zach, which I'm trying to embrace wholeheartedly, is
I'm
this.
sorry, Zach
This
is.
Zach's my co-founder and CPO, and he basically runs product and tech at. So he taught me this term, right? And it's called quiet confidence. And like his like because I'd be in these rooms at one point and I'd feel like subconsciously or unconsciously, like, do I deserve to be here? Just because of the environment we all grew up in and like come from ends. And do you get what I'm saying? You see all these things, you're like, should I even be here? It's like, nah, bruv, like you have every right, if not more rights than most of these people because they've never done two companies before, one being like pretty successful. And he was like, you ain't gotta speak about it, like show don't tell. And there's he coined it as this phrase called quiet confidence. And I think like the real OGs who do well is again the counterintuitive intuitive point to social media. They don't like gas themselves on social media a lot, and a lot of the successful dons aren't even on social medias like that. They ain't even posting like that, and so how can you like fully embrace this sense of like quiet confidence, because that also shows like you're complete and whole and within yourself, and so that's something I try and like take forward now, but before, like if you didn't know me you'd be like, why is he saying all these things, or like fucking don't make me feel bad. So yeah, man, that's what I'm
I
trying.
think it's. I think I actually I agree with you definitely for the most part. I think it's a bit of both as well. I think it's you definitely get people who talk a lot on social media who are worth their salt, but you get a lot more people who talk on social media who aren't. You get a lot more people talking on social media who actually aren't really achieving that much, but it's just a lot of noise and knowing how to get an audience going, essentially, because they still have a following, right? They still have a lot of people listening to them and stuff. But what they're very good
Yeah.
at is basically marketing themselves, as opposed to actually. Maybe that's the job. Maybe you should hire them as our social media managers, and like
Yeah.
they can,
Nah, I don't know,
you know,
like, you know,
bring the companies a lot of following. That's the skill.
I, now I tell you what, I learned a story of the guy who founded EasyJet. And my man, like, no one
Okay,
knows what he looks like. He will sit on his flights in economy.
he's
Brilliant.
brilliant.
He's the
Wow,
undercover John, right? And he'll like be able to get on
wow,
trains and like he speaks humbly and calmly to people, and like that's something
yeah,
that I defo see myself doing if I take it that far, um, or if I sell
that's
my shares in
incredible.
the first
Yeah, and
place.
Easy is huge. Easy is massive. Like Easy
Yeah,
is not just about the jets, right?
yeah,
It's a big company.
100%.
Um, I can't remember where he's from. I want to say like South American, Spanish, something like that. Or
I have
am I getting it
no
completely wrong
idea.
here?
EasyJet founder. Stelios, yeah, what a G, bro. Greek guy.
There you go. Greek, yes, Greek Cypriot. Brilliant.
Um,
Yeah, yeah. It's amazing. I remember hearing the story just about Easy Group in general, and like actually realizing how big it is. It's not just about EasyJet, and I was it's pretty fascinated.
yeah, it's a
Um,
big business.
it is huge. Yeah, it's incredible, man. So hopefully, I see. I mean, hopefully one day we'll get to that level. You know, I was about to say I see no reason why you can't do it, because that's the person who believes in humanity in me that wants to say that to you, and also because I know how hard you work, and from our conversation last time compared to where you are now, and how quickly you guys are adapting and iterating. You know, it looks like it's really kind of moving quite fast, which is incredible. But I also understand that how tough it is to grow businesses, and I've never had the pleasure of growing one properly myself. But from people I've spoken with around me who have done that, it just the challenges keep on coming. It's not a
Bro, it
it's
doesn't
like
get
but
easier. In fact,
they're just different. It's
I
just
think it's
different
different
challenges every
challenges, right?
time.
Like once you found product market fit, it's about like building a company, and like it's about
Yeah.
continuing to hire people that are better than you that you fundamentally trust, but enabling them to hire people better than them that they fundamentally trust. Because that trust thing just cannot, in an ideal world, cannot be broken.
Mm.
Um, I think like the challenges are like when you get to a company of like 70, 75, unless you're the CEO, you're going down into a specific function. Now,
Yep.
that means like some parts of your role just completely change. It ends up becoming about people and management and fucking culture and policies. And I don't know, man. I think like I have no I have no want to grow a company bigger than like 15 or 20 people, 25 max.
WhatsApp style.
Yeah, WhatsApp
Keep it
style,
small.
Instagram style. I think these types of products that we're building don't require a lot of employees. Now, I might be completely wrong, and actually, we're going to
Hmm.
need a ton of engineers, quite a few designers, and people on customer support. Um, but yeah, I genuinely have no ambitions to grow. Us.
Yeah, I think yeah, I think I kind of get your point. I think I mean I remember reading about like if you look at really a lot of bigger CEOs and lies in like in bigger companies, there's also a lot of time that gets spent doing legal stuff that a lot of people don't realize. And like you're getting sued left, right, and center by like ex-employees and whatever the hell out there who thinks they have a claim for whatever crap that's going on. And it doesn't sound like a lot of fun, to be honest with you. To be honest,
I'm good, bro.
um, well, you might
I'm
have no choice. So yeah, I'm,
I
I'm
might
sure
have
you'll be
no
up for
choice.
the
But
challenge
nah,
if it gets
everyone's
to
got a
it.
choice. I also might not be suited for that stage of the business, right? I might be the
Sure.
guy
Yeah.
who
Yeah. Fair play.
early stage figures out a problem to solve, builds the early team, solves a
Mm,
problem, finds product market fit, scales to some extent, and then passes the baton off to like someone else. Uh, and it's
fair
not
enough.
bad, right? Like with Lingumi, I hired people better than me. I left. All my shares are still intact. I'm still their biggest shareholder, along with Toby.
That's
I'm sure
great.
that will change soon when they raise their next round and they're like, "Hey, you got to decrease your value." I'm like, "Well, give me a
Sure.
good price, then I'll go." Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think it's about like understanding. I don't know, man. Like, there's too much. I feel like media completely confuzzles people's minds. Like, if you know
Mm.
who you are and you understand like what your strengths are,
Yeah, but most
you
people
understand what
don't.
you. Yeah, but it's figuring
Most
it
people
out.
don't. I wouldn't even say. I mean, I don't either. Like realistically speaking, like, there's a lot. Fine, there's a lot more I understand about myself now, given everything what I've tried and things I've tried to build and so on. Would I say I completely know myself and what my strengths are yet? I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that like with 100% confidence and be like, yes, I
Yeah,
do.
I know what you
You
mean.
know.
I think I'm close to it. I think it's taken years of like experimenting even with myself, like activities, going out, doing
That's pretty
different
cool.
things. What friends do I enjoy chilling with? Who gives me energy? What do I get energy from? What am I good at? What do my close
Yeah.
people say about me? Da 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 da. But I think that's taken years of like external coaching and uh, just like actually taking the time to sit with myself and like try and figure these things out and then try and like validate. So I've
Mm.
been doing Thai boxing for like 3 months. It's fucking relentless. Like it is one of the hardest
Wow.
physical things I've ever done. But hey, like I also love going to the gym. I love going for walks and extended walks. I like going for small hikes, like spending time with my partner, um, friends, and I think like beyond work, those are things I enjoy. So like I'm doing more of it. And that's what remote allows me to. Like I can go gym and then go for a walk from like 12 to 2, 12 to 3, 12 to fucking 4 if I wanted to. As long as I get my work done, it doesn't matter about like the hours I put in. As long as the quality is at a high standard, then
Yeah, that's so true. That's actually very true. Yeah, it's really interesting, man. I think a lot of this can be applied a lot more easily than people realize. I mean, I'm just thinking about I'm thinking out loud here because like, for me it's we have a bit like we have a bit of a loose structure in as in it's very remote. People like there's no check in on like, oh, what time you're working from blah 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 to blah blah or whatever. But there's definitely a culture of we are a sort of a 9 to 5, roughly speaking, and like the work is kind of usually within that range. Um, but I've never really, or I don't know. Like I suppose, yeah, we've never stopped and questioned that. Like, is that
I think it depends, right?
why
So
are we
like
doing that?
well, I could
but
probably give an
yeah,
answer. Like I think if you were less client facing as a company, then it could potentially warrant like asynchronous to be really great. I think for some client
Mm.
facing companies and roles, it is quite hard. But I think for like digital and tech companies that are fundamentally like building products, uh, then
Especially if
like
it's
asynchronous,
self-serve, right?
especially for self serve. Yeah.
'Cause- Yeah, I think that's the trick. Because if you have to have people on the call, on a sales call, on a demo call, you have to have people networking, connecting with people in different businesses and so on. Like, if there's a lot of synchronous element to what to getting the product out there and selling it and so on, then immediately that puts us, at least some teams will need to be working synchronously.
Oh,
But you're right. If
100%.
it's
I think you can
yeah,
blend the two, right? I think
yeah,
initially, like how companies that are fully synchronous would start is you'd work out like things that can be automated. And there's no good solution for this. I'd say like that's why we're trying to build this because like if we
mm,
can if we can genuinely help more companies be asynchronous and we can genuinely make people feel more better, you boost mental health, you
yeah,
boost productivity, you make people happier. And therefore you
yeah,
accomplish the mission, right? Enable people to work how they best work. No. Work best how you best work. Um, and so if you actually then as a result of these things enable that. And so for us, it's like let's focus on completely remote distributed teams, um, and help them enable asynchronous for them at scale. Uh, then once you've completed the whole like the one use case, then you start moving across. Um, but hey,
yeah.
there's enough remote all companies for us to be busy for the next 5 to 10 years.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's really interesting to see how you guys are really moving and solving that bigger problem. I remember with Rayday previously, we tried it. We used it. We thought it was brilliant for helping provide a structure, first of all, around ideas and voting on ideas and so on. We thought that was brilliant. Um, and I don't know how much of that you've kept and how much you've changed. Can you
Yeah,
maybe
so
walk us through, yeah, a bit of that?
those things like people think we've like pivoted a number of times. Nah, we've like these are different hypotheses that we've been validating because the aim is to build a big business. I think like the challenge a lot of people face is they focus on one problem, solve that really well, but then okay, like what did the other pieces look like? And it's too late because then you can't sell your vision with data backing it up. And so like again, the things around structured reviews. Will be the one slice off this pie, but another slice is also requests. And so I think for asynchronous to go like especially well, I think you need like three things. Like you need ultimate transparency, like things have to be over communicated because you're assuming that no one's online at any time. You have to be way more structured with your communication, having context. And as I said before, you have to be able to break things down into like their one or two atomic units, parts. And then the other is like default to action. So like asynchronous really values progress over perfection. And so how can we continue making progress, continue iterating? And like that suits us as an early stage startup too, because for me, I know the rate that we're learning the companies we're speaking to and the way the solutions are iterating, I will not very easily, but quite easily be able to say, oh, by the way, uh, this is the big vision of which it equates to these slices of the pie of which we've shown these teams using it here with this feedback and validating that this can work and these are the outcomes. And within this like pie, we've named all the things that make up the pie, and like request is what we've gone deeper into and what we've started on. Within request, this is like the ideal customer profile. So they are a senior developer or senior product manager or a product leading founder, of which they then drive the solution to like n entities within the organization, of which they then start to funnel. And you see how this spreads across the organization. And for us, once we can solve, I wouldn't say solve, but once we can enable asynchronous communication for the few companies that we've chosen to like go deeper with, um, then you've got all the like check boxes for raising a big round, because macro trend isn't going away. Like more companies are going remote and adopt and becoming fully remote. Um, with the bigger companies like Slack and messaging, just does become really chaotic at scale, especially when you're distributed. And if you can then show that they use your solution to solve that problem, and that this goes across the entire organization, and that like you're giving enough value where people are paying 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, $10 per user per month, the world is your oyster, so to speak.
Sure.
But I don't know, man. At every stage, it gets fucking more difficult with more bigger problems and more responsibilities. So it's a hidden
And more
curse used,
complexity as well.
and way more complexity.
No, it's like when you're playing a chess game. Like, once you make the first move, then there's a lot more moves you can make, and then once you make the second move, there's even more moves, and so on. So
Yeah,
eventually, there's like an endless, literally infinite number of moves you can make. So
agreed.
yeah, the complexity increases exponentially in many ways. It's really interesting. I think like for founders listening, I'm really curious to. I feel like the way you're going about it is very organized. I think that probably might be one way to say it. Like the way, at least from the outside, it looks very organized. The way you're testing different hypotheses, different features, and so on, and you're not afraid to take your time with it. I think that's really
No,
cool.
I think
Um,
we've got the run rate that
sorry.
enables us to, and like patient enough investors who are like, these guys are figuring it out. They're going down the right angle. Some have even said like, why don't you raise another round now? But as I mentioned earlier, like I don't know what I'd spend it for. So like, I'm not a hustler. I'm not going to rob people's money and let it sit in the bank without like a plan of action. And listen, like Mike Tyson says, right? Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. I think like that also holds true for us. Like we have this plan and we've been punched in the face multiple times. I just think we used to metaphorically over these last like 12 months getting punched in the face continuously. Because like we've had this release, these release sets of releases before, and like we were all excited, and then no one uses it, and then we did dig in, and like people aren't even responding back. And I think the hard thing about startups in the early days is when no one wants to talk to you and no one wants to use your shit. So like, what work are people actually doing? So yeah, I think that's the first hurdle to get over. Like, find a group of people who actually give a shit about what you're building.
What you're trying to solve? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that's great advice. How did you go about finding that first group of people?
The first group of people, I'd say internal network, man. Like, because I'd already built one successful ish company, which was backed by VCs. I say ish because it hasn't exited yet or IPO'd or, died. So it's still going really strong numbers. So, uh,
I mean, what do you still keep up with the numbers for that at all, or have you completely just handed that over to somebody else now?
no, no. So, like, me and Toby are still, like, super close. He's a good
Oh,
friend
okay,
of mine.
awesome.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's
He's a good
great.
guy, man.
Okay, that's really cool.
I like him a lot. We still chat
I
all the
have no
time.
doubt.
Yeah, we still chat all the time. So like, I think when the time comes, and I just got this feeling that my last company definitely has a chance of going to IPO and all the way. I just got this weird feeling about it because there's certain things which happened over the last month with like supplier teachers, demand of courses, which just have come to fit timing goals. But I don't know. I think they've still got another like 4 or 5 year journey before like reaching that stage. So um, hopefully I don't get asked to sell my shares. But if it means like it has more of a chance for the business to succeed, and more equity can go into the option pool to hire better people, then like it's a no brainer. Because for me, like we started that business to make education accessible and affordable, and I think they're now starting to move past English and accomplish that like really well. So um, yeah, man. However, I can help on the sidelines, I will.
Wow. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I think I don't know how relevant this is for you, but I know like the world of Web3 is also starting to move into education and so on, and look at certification and things like that. And I don't know whether you guys are exploring that or not, but
Yeah,
um,
I mean, like even Web3, like I don't really pay no attention to it. I don't know much on it.
I didn't to begin with. I didn't, to be honest with you. And as in, let's be completely honest. You know, if you see a wave of, if you see a good wave to surf, and you can surf a bit of that wave, why the hell not surf that wave? So with a bit of like crypto, I think it was very clear that there was definitely like a some sort of boom happening with crypto and like price going up and so on. And there is the underlying question of, well, what the hell does this actually mean? Like, what is the fundamental value and so on? But also there was a wave, and so, you know, in some way I don't blame people who try to make a lot of money out of crypto, because, you know, it's, I mean, if it's an opportunity, it's an opportunity. If that will help you in your life, like, go for it, man. Exactly. But also, like, the underlying tech though is worth a lot.
Like, look, I think for me, like investing, like again, like shout out all the man and gal that made mad peas during that wave, because some people made a lot of money. For me personally, though, like I would never invest in something I don't personally understand or see the dynamics. And like, if my friends like jump on this wave, I just wouldn't. I just don't think I'd do it. Plus, like, I don't enjoy that stuff. I'm not into it. Like, I can see myself in the future investing into like early stage companies. I can also see myself like buying plots of land and building properties and buildings. Like, that sounds mega fun. So like, these are like types of ventures I'd definitely invest in the future. But yeah, I just don't have a personal interest to Web3. So like, even if it's making a shit ton of money, I don't really care, because I'm not that interested in it. Maybe I will be in like 5, 10 years once it's developed. But I don't know. As for now, like, I think there's multiple ways to make a shit ton of money.
Yeah, yeah, I think, but crypto did, I would say it democratized making a shit ton of money, because you could start with a very small amount of money. Like, the, if you think about it in the usual sense, like a lot of things that required, a lot of things that enabled you to make a lot of money required. I would say, maybe if I was to boil it down very quickly now, just thinking this as we go along, I'd say maybe three things. Either you have a reasonable amount of money that you can chuck into this thing, or you have a reasonable amount of time that you can chuck into this thing, or you have a reasonable amount of knowledge of how to get a quick buck out of some sort of deal somewhere. But usually it would require, I'd say, even at least two of those things rather than just one of them. What, like, for example, and if you think, you know, like, let's say import export, right? You spend the time to find suppliers of something that's pretty cool that doesn't exist in this country. You import it, you have a bit of money to start with, and then you get it here, and then you do it. Do you need to have the knowledge? Not really. You can go and figure that out. But I don't know. I can come up with different analogies here. But the point is that what I think crypto enables a lot of people to do is to have a small amount of money, not much knowledge, and a little bit of time, but not even like just a little bit of time to look at where the trends are and what's moving up and down and so on, and then poof, chuck some money in, and you might get pretty lucky and make a lot of money out of it. It was more betting than investing. Let's be honest, man. Like,
It's basically roulette, right? If you're a bit good at it, then it's basically like poker, right? Like, I think, yeah, I don't know, man. Some people made a lot of money. Hats off to them, but they know it was a quick buck, and they know it's gambling. And like, I don't think it's a repeatable behavior. Like, say me, I done the first company that went well. I'm doing this one. Touch wood, so far it's doing well, but I mean, it could die, right? As with anything. But that then becomes repeatable. You understand what it takes to build a successful company. You find other founders that like have the similar experience that you've been going through, and you see potential. So you put in a bit of money. You hopefully get an SEIS or EIS. So if they fail, you get 50, 30% money back. uh, then that's almost like trading, but in more like a whole sense. In that, like, I love startups, so like I feel like if I was to make money anywhere, and a lot of it, it'd probably be in uh, startups. Yeah, man. Some people are like full-time gamblers, right? And they make a shit like a shit ton of money, and like, if that's their hustle, that's their hustle, isn't it?
yeah, I think it's an interesting one, man. Yeah, like I think it's less black and white than people try to make it seem. With like crypto and investing in crypto and so on. And it also depends, like, you know, if somebody wants to make a lot of money and then use that money to go and start some other business, like proper long term business, repeatable model and so on, then, and like, you know, kudos to them. The thing I wanted to say though, the beginning thing around this conversation before we dived into that hole was that the underlying tech with Web3 is pretty freaking cool. And I think we're gonna see more and more of it becoming incorporated into like quote unquote Web2 companies. Because I don't know much about Web3, to be honest with you. Like I said, I rode some waves, and I think by luck some of them worked out, and nothing crazy, nothing major, just a little bit. It's all right, helped me here and there. But I think now that I'm looking more into it, and I've become a bit more interested in Web3 recently, I'm sort of starting to see that actually there's a lot that can be done there that wouldn't necessarily be enabled with Web2. And one thing I'm really keen to explore is like building products, like genuinely building products with users, and using, and I think Web3 is a way that you can this, because this is a bit that I think you might be quite interested in. Maybe we can pick this conversation up offline. um, but I think there are ways that you can really get users involved into helping you build an incredible product, and I feel like crypto might have, or Web3 rather, can really enable that. But
You mean like them getting paid, like
well,
to build, or like
yeah. So
I'm confused.
the, we basically there. If you think about, so there's a thing called DAOs, right?
The
Uh,
contract thing, right?
what? No,
Those are
that.
like Web3 contracts.
So DAOs are, let me get you the exact, so decentralized autonomous organizations. And the idea behind it is that you basically have a lot of people involved in this one project from a lot of different angles doing different things. And the thing I'm really curious to explore is how DAOs can be used to build genuinely user-centric products. Because that to me, it basically, to me, what it looks like a DAO is a way to get a lot of different people from all over the place involved into working on one project. It's kind of like open source, except it's not open source, and people can get rewarded and so on through it. And if you can somehow crack that, then you could literally have users build your product, help you build your product. And if you're smart
Um,
about that, then
that's,
it could be quite interesting. It could
so I've got another counterintuitive quote.
go on.
Quote belief. I'm very big on like counterintuitive things because like typically they're the things that work I think in business. But um, the counterintuitive thing is like no user knows the solution they want, but they always know the problem they have.
Hmm. I mean that
I think
does
by that,
that is something I've definitely read a
I
few
mean,
times in like maybe, yeah, in a few startup books. You definitely hear about that. But tell me more from your point of view what you mean by that.
so like Lingumi, if you had asked parents what they wanted, no one would have said some like a teacher that can understand what your child says and throws a video which feels like a real life teacher. Like no, they just wouldn't because it didn't exist. Like no one would suggest the Rayday solution because it doesn't exist. People only know what they know and they don't know what they don't know. And so that's why I say like it's up to the team to create like a wavy solution. I think DAOs could make an interesting area for like if it was flipped. So like the solution is for employees, and then like DAOs, like you're able probably to give out equity a lot fairly because you can say that 0.5% of the company is owned to this person after like 4 years. It's on the blockchain with their specific IDs, and so like it just holds true to them. And they can't get fucked in the process because like a lot of employees do get fucked in the process, especially when it comes to options because they don't understand what the option even means. It's the right to buy at the time you got in. Not many people have 100, 200 grand sitting around.
Well, no, but you
Depending on
can.
the.
Well, but to buy it doesn't have to be bought with cash. It can be discounted from the sale price. So you don't necessarily have to always have cash up front to pay for it. It depends on
Unless you've
depends on how
left
it's
them.
exited, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. I see like Web3 being, or blockchain technology being useful for like. So I do know like stuff on Web3. I
Okay.
know about the online technology. I just, there'll be some interesting use cases, I think, from an internal perspective. So, like
Mm.
internal organization, managing policies, HR, documents, and those things. Because, like, again, if employers own all documents, for example, and that's done on the blockchain, then when an employee leaves and gives back their laptop, all their personal data is like immediately gone
Mm-hmm.
because you've deleted that like part of the blockchain. All
Mm-hmm.
the things that you need back are instantly done. So that then saves like tens of hours of
Of
like
course.
people hours to do the manual work. So that makes total sense. I could totally see that as business. But is that something like there will be someone who wants to spend 7 years making that world a reality? For me, it's not something I'm
You're
excited
that
about. But hey,
inspired
if I
by it.
saw it, if I saw it and they had a bit of traction and I aligned with the like core concept and vision, then hey, if I had money, I'd invest in it.
Sure.
But I would never do it.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, fair enough. I mean, you do have to be interested, right, in what you're working on as well. Otherwise, you maybe when you hit too many roadblocks, it'll be easier to give up. Um,
but I think that's the thing. I think you do give up. I think if you're not passionate about something, you end up just not wanting to do the thing anymore after a couple of years.
because it's
Um,
difficult. Yeah,
Startups are like the hardest things I've ever done in my life,
yeah, yeah,
and I
definitely.
still keep coming back.
Well, but also like when you start seeing some results of your efforts, it's a real motivator. It's a real booster when you see results, however little.
Agreed.
So, my friend, tell us more about Rayday. The future. Do you know much? Can you go into the future of Rayday yet, or still experimental
Yeah,
phase and
yeah.
so
So
on? Okay, tell us more.
no. I mean, the vision's like really clear now. For us, it's like how do you actually enable asynchronous communication at scale for all remote teams? The problem is that with distributed teams, the more people they add in more areas, the trickier it gets to communicate on work. Asynchronous communication is a solution to that. And so it's building a platform that enables that at scale. And what we're starting with is a simple Slack app that helps you manage and automate requests. And this stops the problem of like having loads of unread messages, DMs, channels, chasing up people continuously on, oh, have you done this thing? Have you done this thing? Can you do this thing? And providing context to people so that they have less distractions in the day and can go more into flow. And at scale, what that looks like is better mental health for your employees, a more productive workforce, and over time, better results. Um, People in the know-hows and everything. Yeah, man, I think asynchronous is great for a majority of things in distributed teams, not for everything, but for a majority. And I'm putting this out there now. It's not a Slack competitor. It's not a Slack killer. Like Slack is good for like instant messaging. If there are like big bugs you need to solve out now, you're not just gonna go back and forth on on Rayday. You probably send a quick like Slack message that we need to sort this out. Have Slack on one screen, your code on another, and then you crack on with it as a set of engineers. But um, for all the other parts of like working on product and stuff, I think this works really well.
Are you thinking of integrating into any like task management apps?
Yeah. So we're thinking about things like Linear, Trello, Asana, Monday.com. Um, but still in the works. We need to first understand like what's the problem that these integrations solve, and one of them is that if you can like teams work across like multiple SaaS stores, which lead to like multiple notifications being sent everywhere, and it's stress. It's a nightmare. And so bringing that all into like a central hub where you can see what has been requested of you, um, and you could set it from the tool itself is one use case, which needs validation because we have a thing. But yeah, that's one area we're looking at.
That's a very very good point because one thing that comes to mind when I immediately when people sort of when people say okay well it's not that great to get notifications on all different places. For example, my counter argument to that is always well actually if I'm giving design feedback, I want to just leave comments on Figma because that's where the
Agreed.
design team sits. That's where they're comfortable. That's where they work. Like why
100%.
why drag them out of there into something else, right? And leave them comments there. And it's
Agreed.
similar with yeah.
But you're not only, but that design is not only getting notified on Figma. They're
Well,
getting
that's
notified
exactly
in
it.
like many other places.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, what we do as an example, like, so Zach wrote a Notion doc yesterday. He sent me a request on Rayday saying, "Oh, can you do this?" Because I've actually turned off my notifications on all software. If you need me and you need me to do something, get it through Rayday because it's just easier. It's just one place to manage something rather than having everything in emails and it's long. So, like, we're still saying that, like, yeah. You just need to sign up. It's out. You just set a request on Slack. Like it's dead easy. And for me, why I love it is that, like, as a CEO, sometimes I'm thinking about longer term stuff. So I'm like, oh, like people data, like the data security side needs to be like top notch here because people are sending requests on like sometimes very confidential things. Should we fire this person? You can't have that shit leaked, bro. So I was like, oh, I need you to think about it, but I need you to think about it and like and get back to me in the next like 4 weeks. Let me just set a request on that on Ray, which then lives on the home screen, and then reminds them like halfway point, oh, don't forget to do this. Da, da, da. And then when they're done, they just select the button saying which has markers done, and then that will then notify me on Rayday saying, hey, they've marked this as done. The future of Rayday, and I see this coming in the next like 3 to 6 months, is that aggregation of notifications and enabling users to like say when they want to be notified. So like you can add these comments everywhere, da, 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 da. And in Rayday, at the end of the day, it'll say you've got 6 requests from this one from Figment docs to look at, and this from Notion docs to look at, and this from da, da, da. And then it's all centralized. So I think it just becomes a lot easier to manage.
I immediately get a sense of like just clarity when you're talking about it.
Yeah. I think it's clearer, but it's like a year of head bashing, right? Like I've been thinking about this from like June, July last year, and we've gone for a whirlwind. But I think like every what people would call a failure, we don't like. If they knew the master plan, bro, like you've got to validate these points and like reviews are one area which we worked and we validate with you guys, and if we validate and move on because like pre-seed is all about understanding what the elements that will take to get to product market fit and build a big business. So I'd say we're using the round efficiently at the moment, and we just got to make sure like we continue learning. Like that is the one thing we optimize for. What are the things we don't know? How can we learn very quickly? But I have good mentors around me, right? Like one of my mentors is also one of our investors, Rob Bishop. He sold his company to Twitter for like 150 million. He's the goat of product, bruv. He raised like a seed and then an A within like 6 months or 7 months. Um, and I think he really understands how, and then he went to lead product at Twitter for a bit. And I think he really understands like how can you validate this in the most like minimum smallest way that doesn't take a lot of effort so that you can find out your unknowns and then you can say, yeah, this is actually what we're building. And this has data behind it. And I think to investors that shows, right, like you know what you're doing. And like rate of learnings is what's going to help you win. And rate of execution tied together. Because you can't just learn and not execute. Because I think in order to learn, you have to execute. Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a valuable piece of information because it's so much harder to do that. And you read about it being done a lot. You read about this whole, you need to do things iteratively and test your assumptions and break them down and go step by step. But it's so much harder to do that when you're actually doing it. And so the
yeah, we don't
way,
have, bruv, we don't have Excel spreadsheets of like experiments we want to run. We're just like, this is a vision. This is what we're focused on. Like, what are the other bits? Okay, let's tackle this one at the moment. Like, you like, I don't know, man. Frameworks are like mega off-putting to me. Books are like mega off-putting to me now. Like, we don't follow frameworks. We don't. Like, I don't read books. I read articles. I listen to podcasts. I speak to like people in the trenches, but like a bit further along. Um, but other than that, I think like consistently going to books and frameworks
how do you keep track of all the data
makes fun.
and all the experiments you're doing?
So we like because we're only working with like 3 companies, well 5 to be precise, but we could have more, but we've chosen just to go with these. like it's either working or it's not. Like we don't need to like over document. Like there's three of us, and so like we don't really store experiments anywhere. There's not like 95%. It's so. Cause I was speaking with a guy called David. He was a guy who was the first growth hire at Airtable, and then ran growth and scaled it from like zero revenue to like 100 million. He's like, bruv, after five conversations, just trust your gut. And I think the gut is an underused organ that humans rarely rely upon, which should be because it's based on experience. When your gut feels like something's wrong, something is probably wrong. When your gut feels like something's right, it's probably right um, to you. Uh, so yeah, we don't. To your question, we don't store like we store the work we're doing like as tickets on linear, um, but experiments we don't right anyway.
Okay, very interesting. Very, very interesting. I think that's quite different to what I've seen in the past personally. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we still like again like we've done like hundreds of landing pages and we've done bare versions like, but because we've been in the trenches, like we've all witnessed it, and there's only three of us, so we know what feels right and what doesn't feel right. And then we trust our gut, and like sometimes that will be wrong, right? And then we'll revert, and then we'll be like, oh, what did we learn from this? And we move forward. Um, Maybe that's just the optimistic character I am.
No, no, no.
But
I think it's a really interesting approach, man. And you're right. I mean, there can be overkill with anything. And I actually want to circle back to your point that you were making about frameworks. You were saying that you don't really use frameworks in books. Did you ever use frameworks in books and then decide to stop using them, or have you never used them at all?
Bears,
Okay,
Bears,
right.
bruv. Like first company, like trying to learn how to do everything and not knowing. You think like these people who wrote these books and these frameworks know the answers. Like
Yeah.
understand one thing, and like I would probably get loads of stick for this, but I don't give a shit. Like most authors should not write the books they write, bro. Like most authors should not say this is the way to build a company and this is how you
why?
use
Why
this
not?
framework to find product market fit, because they have never found product market fit with a company that they owned. They've been in situations where they join companies post PMF and then they use these frameworks and it works, and OKRs and all this like big bullshit, bruv. Like a lot of stuff that works for corporates does not work for startups. And like it infuriates me to see like world winning book here and world winning author here and da 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 da. Like I used to love Marty Kagan, but like this is gonna sound bad, but like he ain't built no company, he's built a consultancy, bruv. Like I think trying to build a startup with customers trying to actually change the world, like you need to trust your gut, you need to move fast. Yes, like you can like some frameworks can help, but I rather trust people like who have built companies and ask for them what their experience was rather than trying to trust a guy I don't know. I think it was because I was quite insecure in myself. Like I didn't know the answer, so I felt like someone should have the answer, but not no one has the answer for your problems other than yourself. Or people who've gone through that problem who you can actually speak to and speak, and they can tell you about their experiences. So like I do read and I listen a lot, but I listen to like other founders on podcasts, and I like read articles from like first round review of people who have like actually done this shit. Or like if I need things on mental models, I'll use Farnham Street. Because they're the like masters of a thingy. But yeah, man, I think I genuinely think most people that write books should not write books. And actually, I'd even go one step further. I think most books can be summarized into articles. You often see the same point in books bashed over and over and over again. And yeah, I've read a lot, right? If you look at my room right now, it's stacked with books from the years of building companies. But having been in this game now for like 8 years, which is actually weird enough a long time, 7, 8 years, I try not to rely on books anymore. Um,
Interesting. That's really cool. Wow. I think yeah, that's really interesting. I feel like we could just dive into that and dissect that further and talk about that for another half hour of where does that innate want or desire or need to just go toward books and experts, where does that come from? But because I think it,
Go to your users, bruv.
huh?
You should just be going to customers and users and learning from them. Like they're going to teach you way
Yeah.
more than about your product that you're building and problems you're solving than Marty Kagan or Teresa Torres like ever would.
Yeah.
That's just my thoughts.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah, it's a very good
I
point.
sound like a hater. I'm not trying to
No, 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 not
do
at all,
something I'm
dude.
passionate.
Look, man, it's and also like be yourself and speak your thoughts out, man. Like, quite frankly, fuck what everybody else thinks. Like, it's not like you're not being
Fuck the
mean.
CEO.
Well, no, it's you're not being mean. You're not being harsh toward anyone. You're not exactly committing any crime. Like, I think there's too much. People are really trying to be very PC these days, and I think I think it can sometimes make the conversation worse and take away from the value that a lot of people have to add. So yeah, so like, please don't be afraid, and maybe for people listening to this who might be on this in the future, don't be afraid to speak your thoughts as they are. That's always welcome. Um, a lot of food for thought at it. Thank you so much. Every time I speak with you, I learn a lot, and I think that's a
Yeah,
sign that like
I
this is
love
a
it.
great conversation, genuinely. So thank you. And yeah, I we will leave links for Rayday in the description if you want, of course. If you want the
Yeah,
people check it
just
out.
rayday.co. Listen, Zach is also on Twitter. I'm on Twitter. Zach writes some hilarious shit. I
Yeah,
write some like motivational stuff,
let
some
me
ranty shit.
follow both of
Like,
you.
what? He just
What are your
wrote one,
handles?
taking a break from Twitter. Mine is. Oh, wait, his one's better than mine. I gave him this name though. Mine is Adit Trivedi 7. ADIT TRIVEDI 7. And his is. I gave him this name. And this literally defines him. He is the Zach of all trades. So that's 2ACK, and then I think that's 0 or O. F, all trades.
Yeah,
It's so
that's quite
great.
funny. Oh man, I dread to think. Okay, I will definitely check you both out and keep up with your posts. Is there anything else that you wanted to add before as we come into a close? Is there anything you want to add? Anything you want to say to listeners? Also, like any shout out you want to make? Are you accepting more BT users right now or not? Or
I don't know. Just like look, like we are taking more beta teams. You've got to be remote first. You've got to believe that asynchronous can be a solution to the mess that synchronous causes for work. In a lot of instances, anyways. And I just say like, if there are people who are founders, just like, don't worry. Like shit is fucking difficult, even for someone who's a second time founder that's done it successfully once. It's not like I find it just as challenging. Some days like I'm like I get a bit upset and like a bit anxious, and like other days I'm feeling like cloud nine, and then the next day it's like repeat. I think that's just a normal journey, and just like I think just know that like it's okay, and like if you continue learning and growing, like nothing will stop you. But just like another thing I learned from Zach, I learned a lot from him, but like stop doing busy work. Like the only work you should be doing is like talking to your users and building shit. And if it's not that, like what you're doing, you'd even potentially call this busy work. But I kind of like doing this, and I like you, so great. But yeah, no. Other than that, just focusing on what matters, and like if you're scared, like what's the worst that can happen? Either they ghost you and you've learned nothing, so you're at baseline anyways, or you've learned stuff and you're a few steps forward, which is great. So I think it's a win-win. So that's what I'd leave. I think the audience.
thank you so much, man. Thank you. We'll so yeah, message heard, and that's a reminder for me as well, definitely, and for everybody who's listening. So uh, Adit, thank you, my friend. We will be chatting again soon. I'm sure of it. Brilliant, man. We'll catch up again soon, my friend, and really good to have you around again.
Cool, man. You too, man.
Speak soon.
Peace.
We hope that you liked the episode. This podcast was sponsored by QFind, a hiring platform that matches candidates with jobs and employers based on many factors that ensure longer term alignment. It goes way beyond package and salaries and takes into account much more than that to ensure a happy working environment for everybody. To find out more about this podcast and to see further releases, we'll be announcing them at the @qfinance.io Instagram page, as well as on the qfinance.io website, as well as from my own personal Instagram page and my own personal LinkedIn. All information you need that we spoke about in the podcast or this information mentioned here will be mentioned below in the description. So take a look, visit those links, and if you like anything or want to get in touch, please do. And lastly, stay tuned for more. Have an amazing week ahead of you.